Okay, Mike, you are good to go.
Thank you. I'll call to order the administrative hearing, City of Cottonwood Heights for January 27th. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director for the city. I'm also the hearing officer for these administrative hearings. Looks like we've got the applicant with us and a few staff members as well, and some other members of the public listening along. So we'll just get right into the business items, but first I need to read a determination that we're required to read when we're hosting meetings without a physical location. Pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-207-4, the Cottonwood Heights Community and Economic Development Director hereby determines that conducting this administrative hearing at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, the Salt Lake County Mayor and Health Department, and the Mayor of this city have all recognized that a global pandemic exists related to the new strain of coronavirus named SARS-CoV-2. Due to this state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at this location. According to the information from state epidemiology experts, Utah is currently in an acceleration phase, which has the potential to overwhelm the state's healthcare system. Okay, so with that, we have one item on the business agenda today. It's a conditional use application from David Worth for a wall height extension at 6713 South, 2680 East. And the way we're going to proceed with this is we'll have a brief presentation by city staff. Then I'll give the applicant some time to share any information and answer any questions. And then we'll open a public hearing. And for those listening along at that time, we'll ask you to click the raise hand button in your Zoom call, and we'll add you in and start a 3-minute timer and allow you to share your public comments. And then from there, we will deliberate further on the item. So staff, I will turn it over to you, Gabrielle, if you want to take a few minutes and share an overview, that'd be great.
Great. Okay, my name is Gabrielle. I'm an assistant planner, even though I know my title says Samantha DeSealhorst. I think it had to do with the link that I used to get in, but give me just a moment while I share my screen and we can get going. Okay. All right, so we are currently looking at a wall or fence height extension at 6713 South, 2680 East. Here's a little bit of an overview. The picture that's shown here is just giving a neighborhood overview. Our applicant today is David Worth, who's with us, and the request is a conditional use approval for a fence height extension. Again, the location is at 6713 South, 2680 East, and current staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. Here's a little bit of context about the proposal. It is zoned in R18, which is a residential single-family home zone. The maximum height allowed in this area is 8 feet in any zone as a conditional use and up to 12 feet with neighbor consent. Since it is just being proposed to be 8 feet, there is no neighbor consent required for this approval. And here's our analysis. So there was a slope analysis, and there's an upward slope of approximately 9 feet from the front of our applicant, David Worth's property, to the front of their rear or eastern neighbor's property. The applicant has stated that they are applying for this so that they can increase privacy, as their neighbor's house is a bit higher set than their own, which doesn't give them the adequate privacy that they would like to have. We did receive some public comment, and after reviewing these comments, we saw that there was a concern about whether this is a shared decision between the rear eastern neighbor. The structural integrity of the fence has come into question, as well as if there's a mutual agreement between the neighbors on the fence aesthetic and what's being proposed, as well as does the applicant intend to paint their eastern neighbor's fence to match their own or the paint that exists on that eastern neighbor's fence. So for recommendation, we are approving this, recommending approval with a few conditions, being that the applicant must complete necessary steps to obtain a business license through the city of Cottonwood Heights, that as part of the permit, engineering must be provided to prove that the existing fence is able to handle wind and loading with the added height. And 3, if the existing fence cannot sustain the new height, that the entire rear fence must be replaced.
Okay, thank you. And I think in those conditions, rather than business license, that should be building permit. That's just standard with any of these fences, is they are required to be permitted. Okay, thank you, Gabby, for that presentation and overview. I'll give some time to the applicant. David, if you want to unmute and share any additional items or provide any responses to some of the questions that were raised in that public comment, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Yes, I'll be very brief. Yes, as been reviewed, agreeing with our neighbors prevents full privacy that we would like. We are just requesting a conditional use permit. We haven't decided if we'll even use it if we've been approved. So we're just looking at options, whether we use a fence or landscaping. We just want to see what all the options are that are available to us. Fully plan on working with the neighbors, particularly my eastern neighbor, Queen, to just ensure we have an aesthetic and appealing structure there. We've been working with contractors to get bids. As was outlined, we will probably do a tear down and a rebuild to avoid the engineering problems with extension. And that's only if we decide to go that route. And so, like I said, we would use a contractor. We would get the necessary permits. I would work with my eastern neighbor to just make sure we're in good shape. To answer her question, of course, we would paint it to be uniform on both sides of the fence. And in general, just looking at a long-term investment that will increase the property value and solve the privacy issue that we face. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. I have a couple comments or questions, but I am going to open it up for public comments first. So again, as stated, if you'd like to make a public comment, just click the raise hand button that you have there on Zoom. We'll add you in and allow up to 3 minutes for any comments. Okay, I see one here. It looks like Mark and Savino Lazar, so I will add you now. Okay, Mark and or Savina, you are on. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Mike. You know what, and I'm getting some feedback. Let me turn this off for a moment. Okay, are you able to hear me?
We are, yes.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm using a laptop, and as long as you can hear me okay, I guess I'm not hearing myself.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, I'm seeing heads nod, so I'll go with that. I was on my headset, but I was getting feedback. Thanks for the overview. You know, David, we haven't met. I don't have a concern with if the fence is going to be replaced. My concern is going to be that if it were just added on and without knowing what that looks like, both in terms of from an appearance standpoint as well as structural integrity. Obviously, that fence is an older fence, probably in the 20 to 30 year range. I don't know if you're aware, but we one of the primary post in between our fence and yours broke last year. We had it replaced. Actually went to your house and I think you and your wife were gone, and I think I left my business card with your daughter. I spoke with her for a few minutes and shared with her that we were going to have it replaced. We never heard back, so we just moved forward with it because you didn't want to see the fence potentially fall. So again, like our only concern is that We didn't know anything about this until we received notice from the hearing. If you're looking at getting bids, our only ask is that, involve us and show us what it is that you plan on doing. We're pretty easygoing as long as it's something that looks good and it's going to be structurally sound, and I'm sure that we'll be fine with it. But what I didn't want to see is, something that would be unsightly tacked on that at the end of the day would result in more work for us having to go and actually, paint our side, and something that was a visible eyesore from our perspective. And
Okay.
I think that's probably all that I have to add.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your comments.
Mark, are you located then on the northeast corner?
He may not be able to hear, but given that this is just formal public comment, that's okay. We'll just move forward, and then I'll touch on a few questions at the end here. I've got another raised hand, Chelsea Voss. Chelsea, you are on. Go ahead.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sounds great. David, I am on the southeast corner, and I was just hoping that when you guys continue with construction, if you could let me know. We just have 2 dogs that we just like to make sure don't come into your yard and wreak havoc with your kids. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chelsea. If anyone else would like to make public comment, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll give it a few seconds here. Okay, I'm not seeing any more. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing for this item. Now, the staff report stated that the fence is a shared fence, so I do think there's, a lot of times this falls into, kind of the civil realm, but there is some level of shared responsibility in those shared fences there. So, I think what you stated, David, is good, that you'll, work with the shared neighbors as you design the fence and figure it out. What I'm hearing, though, is you're not really quite sure which direction you want to go with this yet. And I think my preference with this would be for you to kind of finish getting your bids and your quotes and come back with a very specific proposal for exactly, is it an add-on to the fence? Is it a complete rebuild? You'll have an idea of the finish quality and material at that time. So that we're considering something that's very specific rather than kind of having these open-ended details. It's pretty quick to pull together these hearings, and certainly on its face, this does meet the ordinance objectives for meriting approval. So I don't know that there's going to be any major issues there. I would just prefer to have a very specific proposal in front of me before we make any final decisions. With these conditional uses, we look at these proposals, and then we have to analyze whether or not there would be any detrimental impacts of the proposals. Now, a 2-foot extension on a fence is not a substantial proposal in the grand scheme of things, but different types of construction may cause different concerns or issues. So to better analyze this, I would prefer that we just continue this, and then we will just schedule another hearing when you have your plans finalized and are ready to move forward. Do you have any sense of your timeline on when you would move forward if you are going to pursue the fencing option?
Well, that was the cause for this whole application, was to say, okay, we can do it. So then we can put more work into collecting bids, looking at budgets, working with not only a fence construction company, but landscaping, kind of have a whole package. I don't obviously, if I can't know I can build it or not, I guess we'll have to go down that road and present it like you've described. So that was kind of the whole point of this, was to say, okay, yes, you can do that. And then we can go to the drawing board and get the final product after we look at what things cost and, involve the neighbors, as fit seen. But it sounds like, according to you, that this should be, assuming we have a solid plan, solid contractors, follow all the conditions, work with the neighbors, then, it sounds like it could move forward. So,
Yeah, so the way conditional uses work, and this is for everyone listening, a conditional use is, and this comes from the state level in any city, when you're applying for conditional use, that use is entitled to approval. So we assume that it's entitled to approval. And what we look at is any perceived impacts that may be negative to you or to the surrounding neighbors. And then we can mitigate those with reasonable conditions. And only if you cannot mitigate any perceived negative conditions, then you get into denying a conditional use. I don't see that here. So again, we're starting from this is entitled to approval, and then we just look at adding conditions to address any reasonable concerns. So I don't think there's any issues. And again, the rationale there is good. The slope difference and the added privacy, that's certainly a precedent that's been set with previous applications. So the actual proposal itself, I'm not overly concerned of. I would just prefer to have something more concrete with final details before we make a final decision.
Okay, yeah, because as of right now, we're looking at the cost is about the same. So we're looking to rip it out and have a new cedar fence installed. That's it looks like that's going to meet our budget. It would be painted similar to the way it is now. And I can put this all in writing and represent it. But that's where the contractor's coming back. We don't want vinyl. We like the color schemes okay. And, the tear down is about the same as an extension. And so, that's where we're leaning. So that for the public that's listening, that's kind of what looks to be the price point. It looks clean. It's new. It should get the permits, it'll look exactly the same except higher. So that's kind of where we're at, but we'll finalize.
Okay, and how much I want to continue to a specific date, and the reason for that is I can continue and not have to send out new mailing notices and renotice. I also want to be respectful of your time. How long do you think it will be to finalize all those details?
We're working expeditiously now. So, within the next 2 weeks, we hope to maybe hammer it down. None of these contractors can get to work till May at the earliest. And so, if we got the permit from you guys, the conditional use permit, that would give us time to, inform the neighbors, make sure everybody's on board, lock in some dates. I'm not even sure we're going to do the whole length too. I know, like Chelsea's that corner. I don't even know if we'll go that far. And so we're just working with the budget and the contractors. So finalized plan, 2 weeks without, and the building probably would not start for another several months, but then I can alert my immediate neighbors to that.
Okay, so what I think I'm going to do, just to give you a little buffer there, sounds like construction's a little ways out, is I will continue this 3 weeks. So if I'm looking at my calendar, February 17th. And again, I just request that you come back with specific proposal that's color, a new fence or a replacement or an extension, material, color, details on both sides of the fence. And then I would recommend in that time you coordinate offline with particularly the shared fence line neighbor, and just go through those details. And then we will just hold another meeting on the 17th to go over those more finalized designs and drawings at that point, and then we can go from there.
Let's check that calendar date. Is that a flexible date, or is that just when you guys meet?
It can. We meet on Wednesdays. It can be flexible. So if that doesn't work, we can push it back another week.
Okay. It would be noon as well, or would that be a different time?
Same time.
Okay. Yeah, I think that should be fine. I have a 1 p.m. meeting, so I think 12 would be fine. Okay,
so for the record, I will officially move today to continue this item to Wednesday, February 17th at noon, to give time to the applicant to finalize the details of the proposal and speak with the adjacent neighbor, and we'll come back at that time and make a final consideration.
A couple questions before we sign off. So Mike, should I turn that in to you prior to the meeting? How should that
You
How
you
should
can
that
keep
be?
working through Gabby.
And that would include a write-up and, probably remove the dollar amounts from any bids, but at least, if we have a contractor we're going to work with, present that proposal that the contractor is going to do, and also write up what we're going to do. Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Really, I'm just looking for, hey, it's a brand new fence, it's cedar, here's the color, it's going to be on both sides, that level of detail. Or we're going to add on, and this is what it's going to look like, and here's a schematic of it.
Okay. And that'll all go to Gabriella. Okay.
Yep.
And then do I need any written information from the neighbors or is that something that's not necessarily needed, or I can just drop this off to them and have them reach out individually to me if they've got a problem or something like that?
I'll leave that to you. I will, I would plan to ask at the meeting if you had spoken with the neighbors. So, if you've got updates that you can provide, that will help as Gabby is preparing an updated staff report.
Okay. I'm clear.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time today. Again, I don't see any major concerns with this. I just think we're slightly premature today. Okay, that concludes all of the business meetings for today. The only other item on the agenda is approval of actually the meeting minutes for this meeting. There's a specific procedure listed on the agenda that we will review the minutes after they're drafted and make any changes. And if not, those minutes will be formally approved. So I will move to approve item 2.1, which is the minutes for the January 27th, 2021 meeting. And with that, we will adjourn until February 17th. Thanks for everyone's time today.